I'm your host, Chelsea, and this is MidwestFright. Thanks for joining me again. On today's episode, we are discussing Jeepers Creepers from 2001. It has a 6.2 out of 10 on IMDb. Pretty good, more than halfway. This stars Justin Long as Derry, Gina Phillips as Trish, Jonathan Breck is the Creeper, and Patricia Belcher plays Giselle. She also plays Caroline in Bones. We love her. We love her. So I'm going to give you some fun facts about this film. So this was Justin Long's first leading role at 22 years old. The title was almost called Here Comes the Boogeyman. Thank God they did not keep that, because that would not have... I don't think this movie would have done well if that was the title. There is also a bald cop at the end that is actually Jonathan Breck, the guy that plays as the Creeper. So I need to rewatch this because I completely missed that. And now I'm kind of like, I think I may have seen him. So let's get into this and let's get started. A brother and sister driving home through isolated countryside for spring break encounter a flesh-eating creature, which is in the midst of its ritualistic eating spree. All right, everyone, say it with me. Say this wonderful quote tagline together. Every 23rd spring for 23 days, it gets to eat. Dude, no thank you. Like, no. If I heard any kind of lore like that, I believe it. Okay. You guys remember the cicadas that were out just a few months back? I had a friend send me a video and she's like, oh my God. She's like, I've never heard this many. And I'm like, dude, that's just living out in the country. But yeah, apparently they also come out every so often. So maybe he's like, maybe the Creeper is like the father of cicadas. I don't know. He's not like the mimic bug. We'll get into him later. All right. He comes in. Don't worry. Okay. So let's get into this scene. The opening scene is we see a 1960s Chevy Impala. Driver is Trish and her brother Derry's the passenger. And it's this old country back way. You know how you have the interstate now and you used to have the old highway? They're on the old highway. And they're playing this license plate game. So there's this RV in front of them. And they're like, basically, if a phrase is something along the way they are, then cool. They get a point for it. They have such good chemistry together. And apparently they also improvised a lot of their lines. And I think that could have been why they worked so well. But you definitely feel that they are brother and sister. So then they start talking about why Trish likes to take the long way home. She gets annoyed and she's like, I'll tell our mom and dad the same thing I'm going to tell you. It's none of your business. So Trish starts messing with the radio and it's all like preacher sermons and radio broadcasting. And she's like, oh my God, can we get any kind of like tunes? Which I'm surprised they get anything other than static out there. The way they look like they're going... No. So they pass the RV and they kind of look at the driver there and it's like this old couple and they're just staring at each other hardcore. And I never understood, like, dude, pay attention to the road. Okay. Like this old man is eyeballing them hardcore. I don't get it. But anyway, so Trish and Derry are in front of them now. And while they're kind of talking to each other, you know, Derry's asking her about her boyfriend that she was with. And, you know, he starts singing this song, which I will sing to you. Actually, I won't. I can't do it. But basically, he's like, you know, singing You Broke My Heart. Now I can't find the duct tape to put it together for you. Just making fun of her. Well, in the background, you see the RV turn off on like an exit or another road. And you're like, okay, so there's another way off this road. And we see a faint kind of blurry vehicle coming up behind Trish and Derry. And all of a sudden it is like right up on them. And it's this brown, rusted, like old beat up delivery truck. And he is on their ass. And he's like trying to run them off the road. He's swerving. He's blaring his horn. And dude, the horn is terrifying. And Trish is yelling for Derry to like pull over. And Derry's screaming like, just go around me. Like, dude, just pull over, stop, just pull over. And he just keeps going. And this guy is like swerving back and forth. He doesn't hit him though. He does not hit them. Well, finally, I guess Derry gets over enough and this beat up truck just blares past him. And Trish is like, what was his freaking problem? And Derry's like, I've got one guess, inbreeding. And he screams it out the window. And I mean, your heart's kind of pumping too at this point, because you're just like, dude, that was pretty scary. And so after that, they kind of calm down, and Trish brings up Kenny and Darla. And it's like, okay, who's this? This must be kind of some urban legend, right? And he's like, come on now, like, that's not true. And she's like, well, they never found her head. He's like, no, they found the car. They just didn't find her head. It's just an old story. It's a legend of drinking and driving on prom night, to keep all the kids safe. And Trish is like, no, it's true. Wheaton Valley High, class of 78. And then things just get a little morbid. She's like, hey, I'm going to tell you something. He was like, okay. She's like, I always believed this was the highway I would die on. He's like, we're just full of rainbows and butterflies today, aren't we, sis? So Derry notices that Trish is being kind of like quiet and weird. And he's like, what was that boyfriend doing to you? And it's a quiet moment. And all of a sudden he's like, beating you? And she looks at him. So it's implied, that she's leaving an abusive relationship. And all of a sudden he's like, no, I'm talking about the license plate. Beating you. BEATNGU. And he's like, that's mine. I get that point. So they're back in this game. And she's like, no, you can't call it now. You have to call it whenever you see it. And he's like, bullshit. That's never been a rule. So they're just back to being siblings. They've kind of calmed down, like whatever. The beat up truck is gone. They're good. So they pull over for a bathroom break, and Derry gets back in the car and he's like, hey, like, where's the last water? That one was mine. Well, all of a sudden Trish comes in and she like pulls the trash bag open, and it's full of his dirty laundry because they're on a trip back home from college. And she's like, you're disgusting. He's like, you tried doing laundry on campus. They don't steal, they dye pink. She calls him a mama's boy. And he's like, look, she gets upset if I don't, bring her stuff to do. Like, she thinks I don't need her anymore. So they kind of have this name blame game back and forth. They get back on the road, and Trish talks about how their mom's not the same. And we don't really get much more than that. We just get these vague details about their personal lives, which is kind of nice in this film, because some movies overdo it on bringing up stuff that we'll never come back to, right? So it's just something to casually pass the time. Well, they pull up on this old church and they see the creepy delivery truck, and they see this guy dumping things down this drain pipe that's sticking up out of the ground. Well, he notices them and he just stares, and you just see like this black silhouette. Like, he's got this old, like, not like a cowboy hat, but like an old, like, I don't know, farmer's hat type thing, and this black, dark trench coat. And dude, it's sunny outside and they're sweating in the car. So it's hot, but you can't see his face. And he's holding this thing, and all of a sudden he drops it down the pipe while he's still staring at them. And Trish and Derry are like, what was he dumping down that pipe? What was that? Because they keep on driving. And they're like, it was wrapped in a sheet, wrapped and roped in a sheet, wrapped and roped in a sheet with red stains on it. And then you just see their eyes widen and they're like, we got to go. Their cell phone's dead. He's freaking out. Her car, this freaking Chevy Impala, is garbage, man. The gears are grinding. They're trying to switch gears, I guess, to go faster. Look, I don't know. I don't know how to drive a stick, but the sound is awful. It's like nails on a chalkboard. And then guess who's following behind them? The creepy delivery van is like hitting his horn and he is right on their ass. And he like rams into them. They're freaking out. And this truck sounds like it's going to take off. Like the way it sounds like a freaking airplane just like it's so, the sound in this film is crazy. Like, do not turn the volume up. And he catches up to them. He rear ends them again. They're both yelling like, what is your problem? Like, oh my God, he's going to kill us. And all of a sudden, like the van or the truck comes right up next on the passenger side where Trish is sitting now. And she like yells out the window, like, what the fuck is your problem? And it zooms in on the driver's side window, but you can't see in because it's so dark and it's just menacing. And all of a sudden, Derry just decides he's going to cut the wheel. He goes off into a field, hitting a fence, and the guy just drives off. He just continues on the road while they're slowly just idling into this field. So they catch their breath and they're like, oh my God, like, dude, they could have just died. So they get out, they kind of start walking around. Derry ties the bumper down because it's been damaged from that dude like rear-ending them. Dude, this car takes a beating. Okay. Like it takes a beating and I feel like there needs to be way more damage to it. But he ties the bumper down with his underwear, which is pink, by the way. So just note that. Well, before they get back in the car, Derry's like, we need to go back and look. Maybe someone needs our help. And dude, Trish is all of us in this moment. And she's like, we can get help by going to a freaking payphone. Like, we are not going back there. Agreed. Like, no, like, hey, look, we're out in the middle of nowhere. I'm not taking that chance. Hell no. And Derry's like, look, I just want to go check. Like, and if it's nothing there, we can drive off. And, you know, we did our due diligence, right? And she's like, no, you just want to go down there to see if you can find something gross. And he's like, can you drive off and sleep better at night knowing that you could have done something? And then he says, what if it was you back there? I personally don't give a shit. Like, if it were me back there, dude, yeah, I would want to be found. But like, if it's going to cost you your life, don't do it. Okay. This man's just tried to kill you. He just tried to drive you off the road. No. Okay. So Trish gives in and she's like, fine, I'm not getting out of this car. So they get back to the old abandoned church and it's so creepy. Like there's crows all over there. You hear them cawing and they walk over behind it and they see the church, or they see the pipe sticking out of the ground. So they're looking into it and it smells awful. Like just, you can only imagine what's coming out of this like sewer pipe. And Derry's like, hey, I see movement. And Trish's like, what? No, like there's no way. It's pitch black down there. There's no way you can see that. So he's like, well, I'm going to crawl in. I need to get a better look. So they get a flashlight and he's like, look, just hold my feet. And she's like, no, what? Like, we're not doing this. You're not climbing down this freaking pipe. So he gets down and she's holding his ankles and oh my God. But she's like, you know, the stupid thing that one person does in a horror film and everybody hates them for it. This is it. And Trish is all of us. We are Trish. Okay. Would totally agree. So she's holding his ankles and he's trying to tell her to be quiet because he can like see something. He sees movement and it's quiet. And all of a sudden you hear, rats! Like there's rats climbing out of this pipe and he's flailing, freaking out, and Trish can't hold on anymore and she's got to let go, and these rats are like falling out of the pipe at her and she's freaking out, and he just starts sliding down, screaming like it's a fun little ride. Whee! But the shot's so cool because it kind of does a slow motion effect where we see him falling on his back. The light's hitting him just right. He's torn his shirt, and you see that he has like a rose tattoo on his belly button. So he hits the ground hard, man, like, whew, winded. And Trish starts yelling for him, and he finally comes to. Well, then they're fighting about whose fault it was. Like, she's like, well, there was rats coming at my face. And he's like, well, they were coming at me too. And thanks. Like, great. Love this. Like, dude, you wanted to go look at that creepy place anyway. This is your fault. Okay. You have no one else to blame. So Derry slowly turns and he sees the body that was wrapped in a sheet. And it's not moving. So he slowly walks over and he's like, dude, there's no way. Like, no way they just discovered a possible dead person. Well, when he gets closer to the body, all of a sudden this hand jumps out and grabs him by the ankle, and he screams and he bends down real quick and he starts opening it like, oh my God. And you see what looks like a teenage boy, and he's like gasping for air, and he's blue and purple and like all bruised up. And he's like, dude, he's not going to make it. Okay. He's gray. All right. Like, he is so gray. And he starts kind of like reaching for his stomach. And dude, Justin Long does an amazing job at looking terrified. I mean, his eyes look like they're about to pop out of his head, dude. And so while this kid's trying to like grab at his stomach, you know, over the cloth that's still wrapped around him, Derry just starts like helping him open it up. And all of a sudden you see like this horrible incision from like his sternum down to like his belly button. And it's just like stitched with like this thick rope. And you're like, oh my God, like, what the fuck happened to you, man? And so he's like, this kid is like trying to say something. And you're like, oh my God, like, is he going to like bite his face off? You know, because he's like kind of leaning up, and Derry's leaning down closer to him to try to hear him. But then he just like exhales and he is dead, like dead. So Derry comes back up underneath the light, like where he fell out from underneath the pipe. And he's like, Trish, just go back to the road and get help. He's like, this has to be the basement of the church. I can get out. Just go to the road. And if you see that truck, you run to this pipe and yell as loud as you can. And Trish is like, what the fuck did you see down there? And he's like, just go to the road, flag someone down. And if you see him, come back here and just yell. And she's like, you just had to say that, didn't you? So she gets back to the car, and Derry starts looking around, and there's like 4 more bodies wrapped in sheets, and he's freaking out. And he starts walking towards like this cobweb covered table that has this wood carving in the center of it. And it looks like this like dragon man with these wings. And there's like just all this shit on these tables. And he notices that his shoe's untied just randomly. So he tucks the light underneath his arm. And as the viewer, we see what's on the walls. And there are bodies on the wall behind him while he's bent down tying his shoe. And all of a sudden there's like this liquid that starts dripping on the tip of his shoe. And he knows that's not a good thing, but let's just slowly start looking up. Let's look above us. You know, we're sure, might as well. And you just see bodies everywhere. Like, they are covering the walls. Like, this dude made a collage of human bodies. Okay. It is a house of horrors. And before he gets to the stairs to leave, he turns and he sees this young couple's body on the wall, and they're holding hands. And dude, like, you can tell this is fake in the movie, but just picture it back in 2001. Okay. They are like mummified, like, not mummified. They're like petrified. I mean, they still look like taxidermy, I guess. And he notices their hands that they're holding together. They're stitched up. Okay. Like, they're stitched arm to arm. And then he looks at the girl, and her head has been sewn back on. And the guy has a class ring that says Wheaton. And remember, Kenny and Darla. Whoa. So Trish is out at the car, and she's like waiting for someone to drive by. And all of a sudden down the road, we see some headlights, and we think it's going to be our killer's truck. All of a sudden he gets closer, and because she hears the sound of a vehicle, and she looks over, and she also thinks it's him. So she runs to the driver's side. She gets in the car, which, mind you, Derry said, if you see that truck, you run back down to the pipe and you yell. Okay. She did not do that. And so she tries to get the car in gear, and it's like, girl, just run. Okay. Like, do not wait. Just run, because your car is shit right now. But as the truck starts getting closer, we realize that it's not our guy. It's a cleaner truck. It looks similar, but it's not him. So she takes a deep breath, and she's like, oh my God. As soon as she starts to relax, all of a sudden Derry runs up, scares the shit out of her. And his face is trauma. He is not traumatized. He is the trauma. Okay. So they get back on the road, and Trish is driving, and Derry is just shaking. Like, he is not saying a word. She realizes that they're almost on empty, because of course, why would you have a full tank of gas? Never would happen. Okay. And she sees a sign for Portwilla. I just like saying these little town names. There's Portwilla and there's Poho. And she's like, hey, so we need to stop and get some gas. All of a sudden, Derry says she did lose her head, just like they said. And you know what he did for her? He sewed it back on, Trish. And it's quiet. And oh my God, you feel so bad for this kid. But also at the same time, he did it to himself. You didn't have to go down there. Okay. You could have went on living your merry life thinking that was an urban legend. But no, you just had to go look. So they arrive at the gas station / diner, and Trish is like, clean yourself up. You look like you just crawled out of a sewer. Go make a phone call. She's being kind of mean, which, I mean, I guess that's like her defense mechanism, is just, let's just be an asshole. So while they're heading into the diner, all of a sudden they notice that the truck is on his way back. And they're like, oh my God, dude, he's going back. We got to get back. We got to get inside. We got to get to a phone, because he's going to know that they were down there. I mean, they unwrapped a body. So as soon as they come in, all these people are staring at him. I mean, it's a packed diner, okay, out in the middle of nowhere. And Trish asks the waitress to call the police, and Derry is like freaking out, and they're both terrified. You can tell. And all of a sudden the payphone starts ringing, and all the people are like staring at them. And Trish is like, what? Like, the fuck do you want me to do? And this guy's like, are you going to answer that? So she just picks it up, and this lady on the phone is immediately like, have you seen the cats yet? And she's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you and Derry. And she's like, how the hell do you know Derry? And all of a sudden he grabs the phone, and he's like, hello, who is this? And she's like, Derry. She's like, you know the cats. And he's like, what are you talking about? What cats? Who is this? She's like, you have a torn shirt, and it shows a rose tattoo. And he thinks that it's someone there at the diner. And so he tries to peek, and he's like, what the fuck, you know? And she continues and she's like, his house of pain, you found the house of pain is what he likes to call it. And he's trying to be like, I don't know what you're talking about, lady. He's pleading the fifth. Okay. Deny, deny, deny. She knows it won't stop once it has a scent of what it likes. And she tells them this. And he's like, what the fuck? And she's like, the truck and the license plate? He's like, yeah, beating you. And she's like, no. Think about it. The license plate. And then she starts playing the song, Jeepers Creepers. I'm not sure if I can play it because of copyrights, but you can look it up on YouTube, Jeepers Creepers. Everyone should know this song. And she tells them, if you hear that song, you run. It means shit's going to go down. That's my paraphrasing. You're welcome. Derry says, fuck you, hangs up the phone. And I mean, he's had it, dude. He's done. He's like, we got to get to the cops and we need to go. So it's now evening time. 2 officers show up, a male and a female cop. They don't believe any of this. They're like, the truck, the phone call, they're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, dude, he had these bodies stitched up all over like a psycho version of the Sistine Chapel. And they're kind of like, dude, you're making some pretty wild accusations here. Then all of a sudden the waitress is like, hey, is that your car? Your car out there? And she's like, some guy's going through it smelling your laundry. And so they go out there and Derry's clothes are just thrown across the parking lot. And she's like, he was sniffing it, like handfuls of it. And it's like he was enjoying it. And you're like, what the freak is going on here? What? So Derry starts picking up his clothes and he picks up a pair of underwear and it has his name written in them. And he goes, now he knows my name. It's a funny moment. You got to watch it if you haven't. Then all of a sudden he sees some handprints on the car handle and he's like, hey, do you think you could dust these for prints? And dude, the wind picks up and you see the fingerprints start to kind of like go away. Oh, dude, it's so creepy. So this is where things start getting wild. Okay. They get on the road. The cops are following them. And I'm pretty sure they're heading back to the church. And they're kind of making fun of the male cop and how Trish is like looking in her mirror, kind of looking back at him. And she's like, dude, whenever he walked in, I thought he was a strippergram cop. Well, in the cop car, the radio goes off and one of the other officers is talking about how that church is on fire. He's like, hey, I think those kids are smoking something or they're pyromaniacs because this church is ablaze. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? All of a sudden you hear a thud hit the roof. Back in Trish and Derry's car, we see someone standing on the back of the cop car. He's car surfing, okay? And all of a sudden the female cop, she kind of climbs out the window to look up while they're driving, okay? She's a brave woman. And all of a sudden she gets pulled up. You hear her scream. And then a hand goes through the roof of the car and he grabs the officer's head. And all of a sudden he whips out this medieval battle axe. And you're like, whoa. And Trish is going through the radio station during all of this. And all of a sudden you hear Jeepers Creepers playing. And it's not like the old classic tune. It's like an upbeat, cooler version of it. And Derry turns it up and he's like, hold on, this is the song. This is the song that the lady was telling me about. And it's like, bro, she could hear you if you would turn down the radio and speak normally. Okay. Then all of a sudden something hits their windshield. They scream and they come to a screeching halt. And all of a sudden they see the cop cars pulled over and they get out and Trish is like, hello? Like, are you guys okay? Like, what the hell happened? And you see someone sitting in the driver's seat and you're like, what is going on? And then all of a sudden they see the officer's head in the road. His head is on the road. So they run back to their car and they get in, they lock the doors and they look out their rear view, the back glass. And this guy gets out And he starts whistling Jeepers Creepers, okay? Because this is a theme. He picks up the officer's head and he stands in front of this lit up billboard for a meat shop. Tastes so darn good is what it says. And you just see the silhouette of what you think is a man holding this head, and he is sniffing it. And then all of a sudden he flips it over, and it's so cringy and gross and creepy. And the faces that Trish and Derry are making are like, what are they watching right now? And it looks like he's making out with this head, but he is actually ripping out this officer's tongue with his teeth. And oh my God, there's no way this can be real. Well, Derry's like, Trish, you got it. Let's go. Let's get the hell out of here. Okay, we got to go. So all of a sudden you hear the damn gears grinding in her freaking car. And finally she gets it to go. They burn rubber, and they are out of there. She is flying down the road. You see in this camera view, she has her eyes in her rearview mirror. Like she is making sure this thing is not behind her. And oh my God, dude. Then it gets to a scene where we are inside the back of the creeper's van, and he's loading up the bodies. All of a sudden he slams the door shut, and it's pitch black for a good second. All of a sudden the door opens and he tosses the head in. So we get back, and Trish is still flying down the road. She's picking up wind because they have their windows down. And Derry's like yelling at her to slow down before they freaking die, before she kills them. And she just slams on her brakes. And she just stares at him. And they look over, and it's a house just out in the middle of nowhere. And she's like, we can go in and ask for a phone. And he's like, what the fuck? No, like. And she's like, we got 40 more miles before we get to the next payphone. We're asking for a damn phone. So they start walking up to this house, and they start seeing some cats. And this old lady comes up to the screen door, and you can't see her face yet. And Trish tells her, she's like, hey, can we please use your phone? You know, it's an emergency. And the old lady is like, not my problem. And Trish is like, no, like, please, you know, can we please use your phone? We need to call the cops. And she's like, you're not bringing the cops out here. They're not going to take away my cats. And Derry's looking, and he sees so many more cats start appearing on her porch. And he's like, dude, what the fuck? You know, it starts clicking to him about the phone call from the diner. And Trish finally is like, someone's been killed. And the lady's like, killed, you say? She thinks it's one of her cats that got killed. And this woman is like the crazy cat lady from The Simpsons, you know, that comes running out and is like throwing cats like, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that is this lady right now. So she's like, yes, you can use my phone, but they need to meet you out on the interstate where they need to be. Okay. And you're also in Poho County now, not Portola County. So call the right people. Well, Derry keeps looking at all these cats, and he realizes that the lady on the phone, what she was saying, like, holy shit, like she is on to something. And the old lady is like, you know, these are my babies, and talking about her cats. And Derry's like, how many babies do you have? And she goes, more than a couple. And then all of a sudden the lights go out. She loses power to her house. And you look over, and there's like a scarecrow in her like side yard. And the lady looks, and she's like, that's not mine. And it's like, oh, fucking hell, dude. And all of a sudden she comes out of the house with a shotgun, and she's like, you got 10 seconds to get off my property. And all of a sudden she just shoots at the scarecrow, and you can tell that it's the creeper, and he jumps up onto her roof, busts into her house, and you hear like all this ruckus, and she goes in the house, and they're like, no, you can't go in there, like he's gonna kill you, like he's crazy, and she's like, he's hurting my babies. And so she runs in the house, and all of a sudden you hear boom, boom. And you're like, oh shit, did she just kill the creeper? Like, this old lady is the shit, like, hell yeah. Well, Derry and Trish are standing outside still, and they see the old lady coming towards them from inside the house. But the creeper is holding her, like hovering her above the ground. And as soon as he kicks open the screen door, he throws her to the side. And that's when we get a look at his face. And he is like a mix of the creature from the Black Lagoon and the Swamp Thing, and like a demon type face. It's gray, and he has like these pale whitish blue eyes, and he like does this smirk that shows his like sharp teeth, and he just walks out like a boss. And Derry and Trish run back to the car, and they haul ass back onto the road, and they back all the way up, and the creeper just walks out to the middle of the road like he's about to play chicken with them. Just, yeah, like not even in a car. Okay. And so Derry's like, hit him, just hit him, Trish. She's like, you ain't gotta tell me twice. So you hear her gears grinding, and this the scene's so annoying with her freaking car, man. And it's just like trying to get her gear right, and she floors it. He climbs over the car. She goes in reverse. He does it again, climbs on top of it, and finally, when she goes forward again, he, I guess, misses a step or something, and they hit him, and he comes flying up in the air. And we're looking at Derry and Trish from outside the car, and all of a sudden you hear and see like all these weapons, like knives and shit, start falling and hitting the roof. And then all of a sudden he falls on the back of the car, hits him, and he falls on the ground. And you're like, oh, dude, he's toast. Like, you can see the tire marks on his arm. His leg is fucking smashed. His leg is detached. And then you see something moving under his jacket. And then all of a sudden this huge ass wing pops up and just starts flapping. And you're like, the fucking thing has wings? Like, what? And she's like, oh man, you know what? Fuck this shit. So she runs it over again. And Derry's like, all right, look, enough. We got to go. So they get to the police station, and dude, this police station has like 100 officers working. Okay. Like, if this is such a huge county, where are all the other houses? Okay. This makes no sense. Is this like a training course? Like, is this police academy? So Trish calls their mom, lets them know where they are. Derry looks at this missing person board, and you can just kind of see like on his face that he knows where these people are, or at least an idea where they are. And this is where we get introduced to Giselle, and the cops know her, and she tells them, get out of her way. She's got to talk to Derry and Trish. And they're like, who the fuck are you? Like, I don't know you. And she's like, Trish, I need to talk to you alone. And Giselle has to say what is on her mind. And she's like, you saw the bodies. Did you see the cats? I saw you with all the cats. And they realize who she is. She's the lady that called them at the diner. And she sits them down. She explains that every 23rd spring for 23 days it gets to eat. And Derry looks scared shitless. And he's like, what do you mean? What does it get to eat? Like, eat what? And she's like, you know what it wants, what it eats. It only eats certain things from certain people. It eats lungs so it can breathe. It eats eyes so it can see. Whatever it eats becomes a part of it. And then we see the creeper van pull up at the police station, and he is limping. So we know he's about to make an appearance. So Giselle is explaining it eats to heal, or, if it starts losing, ability, I guess, like if it can't breathe anymore, it's going to eat lungs, etc. Right? So there's something from either Trish or Derry that it likes, and that's the reason why he's like hunting them. He's not going to let it go. Not just because, he didn't give a shit about the basement of horrors, like he set that thing on fire. He didn't care. Why else would he go after them? So it smells what it likes from the fear. And so he has been terrifying people on the highway by trying to run them off the road. And that's how he gets a scent of what he likes. All of a sudden, the police station loses power. And it's like, dude, why? Like, and Officer Tubbs, okay, he's like, can we get some damn emergency lights up out in here? Like, where are my emergency lights at? So one of the officers is checking on the inmates. And he's like, all right, wake up call, head count, let me see some skin. And he gets to the final few cells and he sees two guys are like terrified, and they point to the next cell, and you see the bars are ripped open and the creeper is out in his true form. And he is eating this guy's leg, and now he's eating his arm, and you see his closed wings. And they keep rattling the cage, just like ting, 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 like, because he's sitting there shaking, trying to rip this dude's arm off. And then all of a sudden you hear like the gulping of him, like, I guess, swallowing this arm. And the cop is like, shoot first, ask questions later. Well, he's a goner. Okay, the creeper gets him. And they hear the gunfire, and then on the radio you can hear one of the officers is like, oh my God, you got to get down here, like there's some crazy dude. And Giselle is like, you can't hide, he'll find you. Then she starts singing the song, and they're like, yeah, we heard that earlier. And she's like, no, I hear this while one of you is screaming in the dark, screaming the last scream you'll ever scream. And Trish is like, lady, fuck you. Like, you're crazy. Like, no. And so, oh my God, dude, this scene, like, this is where we're almost to the finale. Okay. So the cops, the police academy, all right, they're getting geared up. Okay. They hear that this guy is coming up the stairs. So they get there. And they hear that apparently this dude tried to take a bite out of a cop, and he's wearing some kind of body armor. And dude, he climbed the wall. So all of these cops are waiting at the stairs, and one of them inches closer. And then all of a sudden a hand reaches down and rips his heart out. And you see the cops, like all the other officers' flashlights shine through the opening of where his heart was removed. It's so cool because you see like the stringy blood and guts and So Derry, Trish, and Giselle are running down a hallway trying to get through an exit, but it won't open because there's no power, of course. And they confront her about the dream, and they're like, who is the one screaming in the dark? Derry's like, please tell me, like, who hears Jeepers Creepers while screaming in the dark? And Giselle slowly looks over at Trish, and Derry's like, no, like, are your dreams ever wrong? Like, you're wrong. Like, there's no way. Then the creeper appears, and he starts crawling on the side of the wall, and Giselle gets down and starts praying while Derry and Trish run upstairs. And the creeper grabs her from behind. He starts sniffing her and, oh my God, dude, it's like, oh no. But he lets her go because she doesn't have anything that he wants. Either she's not fearful or what. Maybe it was the praying. Don't know. So Derry and Trish get to this like interrogation room, and Trish looks at this two-way mirror, and the creeper is on the other side sniffing her. You can't hear anything, but Derry is trying to get Trish to go. And then all of a sudden the creeper jumps through the glass and he grabs both of them by the throat. And he is like up close and personal. And he is trying to figure out which one he likes. And he like licks Trish's face. And he gets all up in Derry's face. And I mean, he is like sniffing him. And he throws Trish to the ground. And we're like, no, not Derry. Like, what? I mean, I get it. Like, he should have went down to the basement, but why him? And all of a sudden, so the creeper has Derry, like, he's holding him hostage. And he backs up to the window, and the cops break in, shine the light. And the creeper is terrifying, dude. He is huge. And all of a sudden, because I guess he feels threatened. I don't know why he feels threatened, but like he has these weird, like this cowl of like talons on his head that just raise up. And it's like, oh, and it's like a warrior type thing. And then all of a sudden he like screeches, and you're like freaking out for Derry. And Derry is like in this chokehold, and he's like, oh my God, like help me. And the officers don't know what the fuck to do because what is this thing? And Trish is like, take me, like, you know, please take me. And Derry's like, don't be a hero. And it's so emotional. It's such a good scene. And the creeper has just had enough of this shit. So he like spreads his wings. He doesn't fly away yet. But he spreads his wings open, and I mean, everyone's face is like, oh shit, you know, like this thing can fly. And Trisha's like, I'm stronger, take me, like, please just leave him alone. Like, we have the same things. We're family. Just take me instead. And she thinks that he's listening to her because he is eyeballing her, like making eye contact. And all of a sudden he turns and he flies out the window with Derry. And Trish comes running out of the station. She's screaming at him. She's trying to chase after him. But you just see the creeper flying away with Derry. And then they're just gone. Poof. Into the sky. Oh, man. The next morning, Giselle tells Trish her folks arrived. And Trish says, you never answered him. Are your dreams ever wrong? Derry screaming in the dark. What does that mean? And Giselle, she tries to comfort her by saying, I'm just a crazy old lady. Like, just don't listen to me. So now we follow this crow to an abandoned factory. We start traveling inside, and it's massive, and it's old, and it's dank. We start hearing faint screaming as we get further in. We see the creeper sitting at like this bench while a jazzy Jeepers Creepers song plays. And he's like making something. And he's got candles all over. He's made himself right at home. And then we see Derry's stomach and the rose tattoo. And it pans up to his head. And his eyes have been gouged out. And then all of a sudden, you see the creeper's face show up behind. And his eye is like where Derry's eyes would be, kind of like he's wearing a mask. And it ends. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Jeepers Creepers. So, little fun fact about that final scene is Justin Long actually is wearing the creeper makeup. And that's actually his eye looking through his mannequin type body. So this movie still scares the shit out of me. I don't care how old I am. Dude, going down a back road by myself? No, I could never. And I swear to God, if that song ever plays, we gonna take Alexa Pro and we gonna chill the fuck out, because I'm not gonna be scared of nothing. Hell no. So I love this film. I remember the first time I saw it, whenever it came out. I think we rented it on DVD, and I was so scared. But I remember watching it with my mom and my sisters, and it's so creepy. So I will be doing Jeepers Creepers 2 in a future episode. That one is one of my favorites. I still quote lines from it to this day. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for listening. You can email me at MidwestFrightPodcast@gmail.com and subscribe to my YouTube channel at MidwestFright Podcast. Talk to you soon. Bye.